You are listening to Animated Indulgence, the explicit and opinionated podcast where grown men talk about cartoons. Each episode will pick apart, analyze, and dissect an animated series or movie.
Warning, there will be spoilers, even potentially for shows and movies that are not the topic at hand.
We may watch cartoons, but we don't watch our language. Discretion is advised.
Welcome everyone to Animated Indulgence, where grown men talk cartoons.
I am Airhammer.
I'm Dais.
And I'm Mojoric. And today we're going to be talking about Adam Sandler's 8 Crazy Nights.
This is our holiday episode, and since some people will be cutting off after spoiler-free, I'd just like to say Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and whatnot to the listeners now, before they tune out.
Yeah, happy holidays, happy New Year's.
Yeah, enjoy the holiday season, hopefully with family, and have a good time.
Okay.
Yeah, and don't attempt to do anything as is portrayed in this movie.
Especially the deer.
Well, before we get into that, how about the little spoiler-free section? I think at its core, this is without a doubt, this is a comedy movie, but the story they're trying to go for is a story of redemption and dealing with grief.
Yeah, it also deals a lot with alcohol usage and abuse in a way, and there's other stuff in it as well. But in my book, for the most part, it's pretty much just an Adam Sandler movie. That's how I would describe it. It's an Adam Sandler movie, but it's a cartoon. It's crude, dumb humor.
Yes.
And incredibly disgusting.
Lots of lowbrow adult humor.
Like I said, it's an Adam Sandler movie. Take with that from what you will, but this is an Adam Sandler movie in all ways, just a cartoon, and it's just dialed up further because they can.
It's a movie with a lot of amusing, quirky characters. I think that's one of the strengths of it. It's not really a character-driven movie, but the characters are pretty strong in this one. It's also got some really strong visuals. I think the animation style does lend strength to being a holiday movie.
Oh yeah, it definitely feels like the holiday season, or at least our part of the world's holiday season. Sorry, Australia. It definitely feels like a holiday movie. It has lots of interesting, fun characters, and it's not a kids movie. That's definitely
hide your kids.
It is not a kids movie. It's not like anything super. Like, your kids won't be permanently scarred if they watch it, but it's not Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I'll put it that way. It's not.
I don't know. There's
happy, cheery.
There's more scenes with jock straps than I would have been comfortable watching as a kid.
I don't know, but it's something. It's not quite South Park. Is I guess what I'm trying to go for here.
Not quite.
It is definitely a gross, crude movie.
Well, I suppose the other thing that we should mention is that the main character, despite being animated, it is Adam Sandler. It's animated as Adam Sandler. He's drawn in cartoon form.
Yes, for all intents and purposes, he's Adam Sandler. He's playing a character in the movie known as David Stone, but it's Adam Sandler.
The main character is a complete asshole, and it's a story of him dealing with grief from his past and seeking redemption for being a complete asshole to somebody who was looking out for him.
So you want to just jump into what we expected? Due to me being absolutely stupid, we have no expectations again, so here's me slapping myself in the face. Harder this time. So, with the expectations, I knew what to expect, and obviously I got what I expected, or, got what I knew I was going to see. What about you guys? How did it live up to what you thought?
I wasn't expecting it to be that dirty, even though it is a Sandler film. I only recognized a couple of scenes after I saw them. And this was indeed my first time watching it. Didn't have a whole lot of impact on me. I guess I can see why it has a bit of a fan base, but it's not exactly my thing.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as Airhammer. I didn't expect the degree of adult and crude humor. I was expecting something more in line with fart jokes, along the lines of, let's say, Billy Madison. And this is definitely a step and a half up from that.
Yeah, my expectations. Well, like I said, I already seen it before we'd done this viewing. But when I first watched this movie a long time ago, probably about a decade ago. Actually, how long has it been out? I don't know. But that's probably why I have such an attachment to it. It's just something that I've watched with my family, and it's kind of become some of my tradition, so I already knew what to expect. But when I first watched it, it kind of like, what the fuck am I watching? What is this? Why? it threw me off guard and kind of got me attached from
Actually,
there.
I suppose I will admit that the nights didn't really play any part in the movie. In fact, I don't think the holidays played any part in the movie. This could have basically taken place anytime during winter and had more or less the same effect. I thought it would be sort of a countdown of like, okay, things keep getting worse, things keep getting worse, but oh, now we're thankful it's Hanukkah. And that was absolutely no part of the movie.
I've seen it quite a few times, and this is the first time I've actually sat down and like really tried to think about stuff while watching it. This is a holiday movie in the same way, I think it's Die Hard that a lot of people watch as a holiday movie. It just...
Die Hard, Gremlins, it takes place during the holidays.
Yeah, but it's not focused on it.
That was surprising to me because I thought, okay, it's a Hanukkah movie, this should be interesting, but no, it's not really a Hanukkah movie at all. It doesn't really explore any of the holiday spirit or anything at all. Little disappointing on that note, but otherwise it was amusing. It was funny to a degree. It's a Sandler movie. I was a little worried that it was going to be late Sandler, but it was all right. I think the escalation caught me off guard with the crudeness of the humor and how far they took some of the jokes, because I don't like it when a joke is put out there and then they reel back. They are afraid of their own joke in some movies. This movie was not afraid of its own jokes.
No. In no way is it afraid to push its joke.
Yeah, and I appreciated that part of the humor.
Warning, the spoiler-free section is now over. Continue listening at your own risk. We're officially past spoiler-free, I guess, so we could talk about it a little bit, like the whole reindeer shitting shenanigans, or how about the reindeer licking shit-covered shitty ice off of...
Oh, God.
A Whitey. Yeah.
Well, we're getting into characters here, so let's just start with the deer, shall we? These deer are disgusting. They're basically following the main character, Davy Stone, around, and whatever antics lead to something that involves shit in the end. Davy, he knocks over a porta potty with the other character, Whitey, down some snow, and Whitey's covered in shit, and then he goes to spray him off with a hose, which solidifies him in ice and shit. The deer come and start to lick the ice cube to get Whitey out, and in the process their teeth are full of shit. And there's another scene later where they're literally laughing themselves shitless, just constantly farting out turds.
I'll be honest, those deer are part of one of my favorite jokes in the whole movie. When those cops come around the corner and they're like, "What's going on over there?" "Nothing much, just some deer doing a pyramid." I don't know why.
Very helpful.
Yeah.
Very, very helpful deer. Very warm-hearted. I like the...
Sentient, very understanding for a deer.
I like the basis of them. They're very, very much a tribute to the old classical holiday movies. They're almost Disney-esque in their appearance.
I think the narrator, which is where I wanted to start with characters.
The narrator is the first character we hear from.
He's also... The narrator is done by Rob Schneider, who also does the voice of Mr. Chang, which is the owner of the restaurant that the story starts out at.
Not the same voice. The narrator is not Mr. Chang.
Yeah, they're not the same voice, but Rob Schneider does both of them. I was just commenting.
Oh, no, but that really needs to be emphasized.
Yeah, fair enough. They're totally different. That would be pretty funny. The narrator is just kind of this... He's a narrator, but he's also, he has more anecdotal comments and quips about stuff going on than the typical narrator you see in a type of movie. I just thought that was worth noting. He's not really a major character per se. I just thought it was a neat little aspect. Adam Sandler plays Davy Stone, the main character of the movie. He's kind of a drunken asshole. The first thing we see of him is dining and dashing from Mr. Chang's restaurant. And then
he's a career asshole.
He is a career asshole.
Yeah, he's a professional.
Professional asshole, and just... Asshole's the only other word for it, but he's just so asshole-ish about his asshole-ish. He's like, oh, I could have walked away from these cops, but instead I'm going to come back and pretend to make love to my car in front of them. I don't know, rub it in their face, fuck with them, whatever. But yeah,
you might think, you might get the impression without saying this, he's sort of like the Grinch. Not really. He doesn't really resent the holidays any more than he resents everything in life. He's just a mean, spiteful jerk who makes everybody else's life as miserable as possible for his own amusement.
Professional drunk. He's the main character. We follow him throughout the entire story. He is the one we learn the most about from all the characters, basically. He starts off as a drunken asshole who gets in trouble with the law, and he's put on kind of like this probation-y situation where he has to, strap up and do better, or he's going to jail for 10 years, and he's put into a program where he's going to help coach youth basketball with another character, Whitey, who's Sandler also voices. Yeah, throughout this process, throughout the movie, he kind of opens up for a while before he takes a dip back into assholes-nish. He does have a kind of a redemption type thing at the end, and then there's flashbacks that show why he's such an asshole, because, his parents died. Obviously, we hammered Holt, he's an asshole.
Yeah, it really needed to be emphasized, though. One of the things is Whitey, the next character we're going to speak on, I believe, sticks his neck out for Davey so he doesn't face any penalties for running in with the law, and that sort of sets the entire events of the movie off. He doesn't have to face any real consequences for his action that early on, and that seems to be the catalyst for him both feeling bad for the people he's spending time around, and the catalyst for him thinking he can get away with more.
It's also really heavily implied. This is his last strike. He has to get his shit together during the events of this movie, or right after the start of this movie, or shit's gonna go bad for him. He's gonna go to prison. That's what
Yeah, he's got this threat of prison, but he just keeps acting like an asshole on purpose regardless.
Then there's Whitey.
He's short, he's old, he's been working for the school or the basketball team for quite a while now. He feels he's an icon of the town, and he has one of the hairiest asses I've ever seen.
Oh, he's basically a monkey. He's like this little... Both Whitey and his sister are these, short fraternal twins.
He's got mismatching feet, he's covered in hair, he's bald, he's got little squinty eyes. He's a sweet guy, though. He's been volunteering for the children for years, decades.
Yeah, and he's definitely one of the most caring characters in the entire movie. He genuinely cares for everyone he comes across. It almost seems like Whitey's goal is to hey, someone comes across me, someone crosses my path, their day should be better for it. And that's why he stands in to help Davey.
Yeah, he is absolutely altruistic. He wants to help people. His goal in this is to sort of fit in, because he is definitely a misfit. He would very much like to fit in and be accepted and recognized for all that he does to help people, and a lot of times it comes short.
While Davey's story is about, redeeming himself, trying to make a better person of yourself, but despite the fucking asshole he is and the shit that led up to him being what he is, Whitey's story is more about, hey, maybe we should take more time and recognize the people who help us do well in everyday life. He's very, looked over. He's a person, he is a staple of the town. When we get to the end of the movie, he's helped everyone out with tons of shit over the years, and he's been a gigantic icon in this youth basketball league, teaching and helping youth basketball at this town for literally decades. We've had flashbacks to when Davey was a kid, and he was still doing it at least 20 years prior or whatever. But he keeps getting overlooked, and people look down on him because of his weird, odd nature, and that he lives alone with his sister, and he's a midget or whatever, a furry, weird midget dude or whatever. People look down on him and give him shit because of what he is and not what he's doing with his life. And that's kind of Whitey's arc and character.
You mentioned his sister. Would you like to talk about her next?
Yeah. Whitey's also played by Sandler, and so is Eleanor, which is Whitey's sister, fraternal twin sister. Where to start with Eleanor?
Character-wise and how she fits in the story, she's more or less an extension of Whitey's awkwardness, but she is so uniquely characterized and so amusing that she really takes on a life of her own. I think in a lesser developed movie, in a movie where they cared less about the characters, she would have been a footnote. In this, she sort of steals the show.
Yeah, she's definitely one of my favorites. She's just like Whitey. She's short stature. She has hair issues. She's bald. She wears wigs. She has the opposite of Whitey. Or Whitey's super hairy. She's bald, which I find funny. But it's also, she has the weird deformed feet, but on the opposite from Whitey. But yeah, she is this weird hermit lady that stays at home and is constantly afraid of people attacking her house. And when Whitey's 30 minutes late coming home. She calls the morgue. It's a treat. But yeah, she's just this weird, crazy lady that's been traumatized for like decades by the fact that someone stole her wig when she was younger. And she just lives alone in her house with Whitey. And there's really not all that much to her character, to be honest. We don't know much about her outside of what we know because we know about Whitey. But the way she's portrayed is so amusing that she's a highlight.
Yeah, she's incredibly quirky. If you were to ever catch the movie like in the middle or something and you didn't know who she was, your first thought would be that she's Whitey's wife. Because she does kind of stand out that way. But no, they're siblings.
She's always getting pranked by the kids in the town. It's like, no wonder she's the shut-in, because like when she was younger, someone stole her wig, and people are still fucking with her. People are, like, the kids in the town prank call her. The kids are giving her shit because she doesn't know how to use a toilet seat cover. She thinks it's the lobster babe. She packs away a bunch of rolls at a dinner she goes to into her purse. It's like, this will be a good treat for February. She's just this weird, crazy, eccentric lady. She has almost no relevance in the plot at all, other to have someone for Whitey to explain Davy's tragic past to. And even that could have been done with another character. But she's a treat, and the movie is definitely better for having her. I guess there's other characters as well, but the other major character in my book would be Jennifer Sandler, or I guess Davy's love interest. To be honest, I think she's one of the most lackluster characters in the movie. Her and her son are just kind of generic. She's there to be a love interest, right? She has nothing going for her.
Complete agreement there from me. I have my note written down. I forgot her name. I just wrote her down as love interest and her son. I didn't remember these people's names. I remember some of the extras that are thrown in near the end of the movie. I remember some of the one-off characters. I don't remember them. They're cardboard cutouts.
Yeah, well, Benjamin is her son's name, but yeah, they're definitely cookie-cutter, cut-and-paste characters, and they're definitely the biggest drawback character-wise in the show. She's just this person that Davy used to play youth league basketball with in his past, and they kind of had a thing together, and then Davy turned total asshole mode on when his parents died, and never looked back, and now she's back in town as a new surprise love interest again, and that's basically her character. And the same thing with her Benjamin. It's her son. Like, he's just there, which is kind of sad. Love or hate this movie, you have to admit that it has lots of quirky, funny, interesting characters that have some kind of interesting quirk or oddity about them. Even the mayor is like this weird kind of stuck-up dude that doesn't know how to write jokes, and he's like thinks he's a lot funnier than he is, and thinks he's a lot more important than he actually is. He has more character than the love interest, and he is barely in it.
I agree. Whatever reason, by trying to make them be more appealing or more normal, they made them feel soulless to me. Well, I'll get more into it in plot, but I think the movie might have just been better off without them completely.
Yeah, or at least a more interesting love character, if they needed a love interest at all. But yeah, either cut them and somehow write around it, or have more interesting love interest. There's a lot of talent in this movie, despite the fact that they might be side characters. There's tons of cast from Saturday Night Live returning in here. There's tons of reoccurring Happy Madison production staples, like Peter Dante. He plays the Foot Locker logo. He's a Happy Madison staple. There's also the GNC bottle. He's a guy that's in like tons and tons of early Adam Sandler movies.
Yeah, this probably sounds really weird right now if you haven't seen the movie.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a moment.
I promise this will pay off.
Tom Kenny plays the Sharper Image chair. Yeah, there's this whole sequence where a bunch of product placement logos come to life and sing to Davy. We'll get to that later, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's worth noting that this movie has a pretty interesting cast.
A lot of Saturday Night Live alumni from the golden or silver age, depending on what you think. But yeah, if Phil Hartman was alive when they made this, I'm sure he would have been in it too.
Blake Clark, who played not the main kid, but the main kid's best friend, Sean's dad in Boy Meets World. Also, Norm Crosby, stand-up comedian. He plays the judge.
John Lovitz, he's in there.
Tom Balthazar.
Yeah, the funny thing is, like Davy being animated to look just like Adam Sandler, John Lovitz's character looks like Lovitz.
Except where he has a hook for a hand. Important distinction.
Yes.
And yes, he's wiped his ass with the wrong hand. It's the status.
I guess the only other character is Mayor Dewey.
Yeah, played by Kevin Nielsen, who's another Saturday Night Live alumni. One of the things that most attracted me to this movie, besides the love interest and her son, The town in this movie feels very much alive. I could see like an actual cartoon being situated around the characters in this town. I don't know what the actual overarching plot would be. I don't know how the hell you would tie it all together, but like the characters and cast of the town has a very much like a classic cartoon town feeling. Think the giant cast of characters in the town of The Simpsons, or Gravity Falls was a cartoon that had a really good cast. The town felt alive and filled with quirky, fun characters. I know we're kind of skimming over them here, but I do really enjoy the side characters in this movie. So
we're skimming them, but at the same time, there's not many of them that have any real impact. I mean, we could talk about the lady with 3 breasts.
Yeah, there's all exactly,
but she's more of a joke than a character.
When you put it that way, yeah, a lot of them are kind of more jokes than characters. But I don't know. I feel like 3-breasted lady aside, like the mayor, the judge, Tom Balthazar, the Chinese restaurant owner, Mr. Chang.
Oh, one thing about Mr. Chang, he looks fabulous with a wig. Any wig on you.
There's a recurring thing where the wigs keep getting thrown onto his head on accident.
And he wears them better than Eleanor.
Oh, by far. Oh, we forgot the most important fact about Eleanor. Without her wig, she looks like an owl. But yeah, like I said, we're skipping over the characters and stuff, but yeah, I really do enjoy the characters and the townspeople of this movie.
I think that's probably the
highlights.
Strength of this movie. I'm not sure what characters we need to discuss other than that. There's not a huge lineup in this movie.
Oh yeah,
but they're important to mention because of the warmth and heart they bring to the tone of the movie, how they build up the setting. But I don't think many of them are actually important by themselves.
By far, they're not important in and of themselves. But like the town is almost like a collective character, if you want to look at that. And I think a lot of shows do that. And this, as a movie, does it as well, in a way. I guess I kind of like just things that do that. Move on to story.
Yeah, so as we already established, Davy is at a Chinese restaurant at the start of the film. He doesn't really realize it at first, but he is doing a dine and dash, and he goes terrassing through the town, destroying a number of things in the process, and he winds up in front of the judge for the upteenth time, where he's finally stated, I'm going to put you on probation, and if you screw this up, you're going to prison for 10 years.
The sole fact, he was going to go to prison. The only reason he didn't is Whitey stepped in.
He wants to get him just involved with the community. He's doing the whole thing with the youth basketball. That's where Jennifer's son, Benjamin, comes into play for a little bit. And he's, like, Davy's somewhat trying to act kind of like a father figure, but Jennifer doesn't want her son to be part of his life. Meanwhile, Davy's just, like, acting like an asshole to Whitey the entire time. Yeah. This is where a lot of the comedic aspect comes in with the deer in follow. And then we get introduced to Eleanor and her crazy antics, and the whole thing just continues to take shape.
At one point, Davy loses his home and all of his property, which, considering the shabby state of his home and his meager property, is a huge loss, but losing everything you own right before the holidays is pretty crushing for anybody, and Whitey takes him in typical Whitey fashion.
He does save his Hanukkah card from his parents. It's revealed through the plot that the reason Davy's such an asshole and such a drunk and treats everyone like dirt is because he's miserable. He kind of changed when he was playing youth league basketball in the past. I think it was actually implied to be around holidays still, because wouldn't it be nice?
Well, there was a Hanukkah card, yes.
Yeah, exactly, yes. That's why he kind of dislikes the holiday. Maybe he goes into extra asshole mode during the holidays, who knows. He has the Hanukkah card from his parents that was delivered to him after his parents' death, and it's kind of up in the air if he's ever actually read it or not, but he runs into his burning down trailer, and the only thing he wants to save is that card. So he gets that, and he hangs out with Whitey at his house for a while, where we meet Eleanor. But he kind of turns back a little bit, and then we come to the grand finale where he helps the town realize that, hey, you guys are treating Whitey like shit, but he deserves more recognition, and he kind of redeems himself through that.
Yeah, the whole thing is that Whitey has been invited to this annual all-star banquet where he's been nominated for a annual patch award, and when he finally gets there, it's like the whole town just overlooks him. He doesn't win.
They give the patch to Tom Balthazar, who just threw a bunch of money at it, and so he's all bummed out. And it all kind of comes to a close with him redeeming himself and helping the town realize that they should be treating Whitey better. The plot's pretty simple and straightforward, really. Like you said, you'd think with the movie being 8 Crazy Nights, it'd have more to do with Hanukkah or the holidays in general, but they're just kind of a backdrop. There are themes of like, hey, holiday spirit, and miracles happen near the holidays, treat people better near the holidays. There's the themes and stuff like that, but there's also themes of recognizing people when they do good for you, just for the sake of doing it. show them some recognition. Thank them. Be thankful. At least let them know you're thankful. There's so many people in this movie that, like, Whitey goes out of his way, literally, just doing something that no other person would ever deem themselves low enough on the totem pole to want to do, just to make other people happy, and they still treat him like garbage. So it kind of has that in there. Obviously, the other big theme is alcohol abuse. Davey definitely drinks tons and tons in this movie. In fact, if you think about it a little bit, like when he goes to live with Whitey and they explicitly say, hey, you can't drink here, that's when he starts to lighten up and not be so much of a douche.
Yeah, we have a nice musical number by Whitey with a song called Technical Foul.
Oh, yeah.
There's also a pretty heavy theme of community in here. We've mentioned how they built up the town through the quirky characters and how the town sticks together, the people. I think that's a serious theme of the movie, and certainly something they try to push forward. They want to show that even the people who are overlooked are an integral part of a community. The people who don't get the appreciation they deserve really do deserve it, and that they're the binding agent that holds some other people together. That's sort of what they try to represent Whitey as. But this is the point where I'm going to have to nitpick a lot. This movie is desperate to have the perfect happy ending, and it really hurts for trying to get that far. Try to have this romance angle thing going on. It would have been better without it. It would have been better if that time was spent on Davey dealing with his alcoholism and overcoming substance abuse. They try to have this entire thing about Davey's past and how his life was better before and where it went wrong, and that would have been great to see, but it would have been great to see him pull himself out of that instead of just snap to one little thing and realize that Whitey deserves more. He doesn't actually make up for anything he actually does.
That was one of my big nitpicks about the movie too. Just that, like, he just gets off at the end. It's just implied, like, everything's okay now. You made the whole town break into song and appreciate Whitey. We're gonna ignore the fact that you broke into the mall. We're gonna ignore the fact that you smashed down our giant ice sculptures. We're gonna ignore the fact that all this crazy ass garbage shit you've done throughout the movie.
Oh yeah. More than that, also the way he does it is also pretty half-assed. He helps Whitey get this badge that Whitey really, really wanted for the longest time, but the fact is, Whitey puts too much importance on that badge. It should have been the other part of the story instead of the romance is Whitey realizing that that badge is too important to him and is representative of something that he's not getting in his life, and maybe Davey and Whitey should have been better to themselves. It could have been a much more important movie for those aspects. It could have been a lot less tropey, but they just, I don't know, maybe it was the studio, but it felt so painfully forced in a lot of ways.
I honestly, wouldn't even put it that far. I think it's just it's an Adam Sandler movie, right? That's the way most of them end.
Yeah.
Happy ending. It's very much a made for the masses type thing. It is a tropey. It's not trying to do anything gigantically thought-provoking.
I guess my big complaint here is that none of it's connected. There's no cause and effect there. Just things happen that are independent of each other, and things turn out good in the end because reasons.
I agree, it could have been better, and it probably should have been better, but the nature of who was involved, what it's trying to be in and of itself. I'll never go into anything with Adam Sandler in it and expect anything super thought-provoking.
I feel like they could have got the same beginning and the same ending if they would have done a better cause and effect and strung the events along in a better way. But it is what it is, and they kind of let me down on that side. I'm just disappointed at the way all this was just sort of independent, and then this happens because of randomness, and then this happens because of randomness. We mentioned the scene in the mall where Davey goes there and hallucinates the talking product placement. We don't know why he's hallucinating.
I think
magic? Did he take shrooms?
We were talking about that, and I was actually thinking that is kind of where it's very loose, and it's kind of a stretch. I will fully admit it's kind of a stretch. I think the random happenstance nature of shit happening, like why are the deer stacking up in a pyramid to protect Davey? At the end of the movie, where he is running away from town on the bus, and all the tires on the bus go out by one thumbtack, it's all supposed to be like, ooh, Christmassy miracle, holiday miracle. Like, it's even hinted at the very beginning of the movie where the judge says, oh, Whitey, it's gonna take a miracle for you to make Davey into a better person. And Whitey replies with, it is the holidays. That type of stuff isn't going to happen this time of year. And I think some of that's supposed to play into it. I do think it's cheaply done, but I don't expect more from what this movie is. Before we moved out of story and theme, though, I wanted to quickly touch on the fact that, yes, Davy, he goes to the mall while drunk, and all of the stores that Whitey happened to mention during an earlier adventure to the mall come to life and start trying to convince him to come to terms with his parents' death and read the Hanukkah card and all this touchy-feely stuff. And so, yeah, I just want to point out that we promised we'd try to make it make sense. Yes, the Sharper Image logo is a character. Yes, the Foot Locker referee is a character. Yes, the Radio Shack walkie-talkie is a character. Small character, but now you have context.
As much as us.
Yeah, next up is music and sound. This is kind of a musical. I'd argue that there's more regular, dialogue and conversations between people than there are songs and music, but there's definitely a lot of music and songs in it. But the sound design itself, was there anything stand out besides the songs where the characters are singing?
The
sound
voice
effects
cast.
the voice cast for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the standout for me. The voice cast was very strong. Yeah, the spoken lines, the dialogue is really well delivered throughout. I don't think I heard any lines that felt cheesy or corny or out of place, even when the characters were doing absurd voices. Before we get into the songs proper, I will say that Sandler overextends himself a little bit by playing so many characters. Davy and Eleanor are fine. Absolutely no way you could tell that they were the same person. Davy and Whitey sound too alike.
That is most apparent during the song Technical Foul, which I think you brought up earlier, Airhammer.
Yes.
It's right when Whitey takes Davy home for the first time, and they're setting the ground rules for the house. You get the song with Whitey and Eleanor singing the rules of the house to Davy, and when you sit down and think about it, you realize that Adam Sandler's singing all three of the roles of the song, and that is where the Davy-Whitey voice similarity is absolutely the most apparent. Which ones did you guys like? Which ones you didn't like? What'd you think about the fact that it was musical?
I was actually kind of surprised it had so much music, to be honest, going back to expectations for just a touch. I didn't expect it to have as many songs as it did. I suppose I expected some sort of music, considering its base is named after an Adam Sandler song, which was in the credits, by the way. Wasn't really in the movie, but it was in the credits, so I'll let that one slide. So it had more music than I was expecting, and I don't know that any of them really jump out at me. I don't really appreciate music in television and film as much as most, and none of these really jumped out at me. It felt like they were just songs for the sake of, hey, we want a song here, and that's fine. A lot of stuff does. Yeah, a lot of stuff feels that way to me, so yeah, none of them really jump out at me. I'm not really a musical kind of guy when it comes to programming.
I actually wrote in my notes and that this very much feels like it was an excuse for Sandler to do an animated musical.
Technical Foul was really the only one that stood out outside of probably the last song with the whole group coming together at the mall. But I don't remember that one much.
I guess the one that stands out the most to me would be I think it's the one at the beginning where he just sings on about what he hates. It's almost a country song, but yeah, it's almost a country song, but instead of being about being sad and about being a dead dog, he just hates everything. It's like a country song with grunge lyrics.
But yeah, there's a lot of music in it. If you've heard any of Adam Sandler's music, you know what to expect.
I'd say it's more focused than his typical music, yeah.
Yeah, I meant in style.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely more focused, and they're all related to the plot. I'm not quite sure what classifies as musical or not, but like the songs are sung from the perspective of the characters about the plot going on.
It is as much a musical as a Disney movie typically would be. As much as, say, Beauty and the Beast or The Little Mermaid, that's about the same content you're getting here.
Yeah.
You get about 4 to 5 songs throughout the course of the movie, sung by the characters about events in the movie.
There are 7 songs. There's Davy's song, the one where he sung about how much he hates everything. There's the song about the mall. There's the song about the patch. There's the song where he talks about how he had that fling with the girl in the past. That one's notable because I find the little random tidbits hilarious. Like we get a random cutaway to the mayor where he gets one random line, no context, no involvement to the rest of the song, but is like, my darling wife was once a he. And it's just like... But that was long ago. And then back to the regular song as if nothing ever happened. Or like Whitey wakes up mid-song is like, the only time I had sex was on the phone. That actually might be my favorite song. Just for the random cutaway tidbit jokes. But Technical Foul, which we already talked about. I don't know. I like the music. I think it's not as important as how much they developed and made the townspeople enjoyable. But I think the movie would be missing something. For me, personally, if the music wasn't there.
Any
It's
sounds stick out?
Realistic deer farting noises.
Exactly.
I assume realistic deer shitting noises. I'm assuming realistic because I've never heard a deer shit. But hey, someone in the sound design is like, I think this is what a deer sounds like when it shits. Someone made that choice.
Someone went out to the woods with a sound recorder, taped it to a tree, and had it recording all night. And
hope to God a deer had the shit near it.
Yeah, that was $1 million of the budget. Just waiting for deer to poop next to a recording in the woods.
A lot of the random sound effects and stuff, it's pretty all generic fare, right? I think we've talked about this several times on the podcast. Sound effects in general are one of those things that, like, if they're done at least adequately, you don't really notice them. If they're doing their job, they're not super noteworthy. You know what I mean? Like, we can appreciate them for doing the job adequately, but how hard is it? Ooh, that's a really good sound effect of a chair scraping across the ground. Like, whatever the case may be. What else is there to say about it? Nothing sounds out of place. You don't hear any, like, big slapstick crazy sound effect when someone falls.
Which is important because some of the characters do follow some of that slapstick in appearance or in motion. Whitey in particular, he's much more cartoony than the rest of the cast.
The sound effects are not something that detracts from it, I guess I'll say. I can't say I would ever write home and say, oh, the sound effect design on this movie is top-notch, something spectacular, amazing, but it's okay.
I don't think I had as much to say about the music as you were hoping, but to be honest, it really didn't tickle my fancy.
Up next.
Animation.
Animation and art, yeah. It's nicely drawn. What would you say the art style most resembles to you?
Definitely looks like traditional cell animation. I think it's done on computer because it was done in 2002.
Yeah.
Don't think they drew it. I really don't. I think it was done on computer.
I don't think it's hand.
But it resembles it.
It is a traditional animation style. It is done in the style as if it's hands drawn, if that makes any sense. But it's also not like a CGI movie. It's not like something along the lines of like Despicable Me or WALL-E or.
It doesn't even look like some of the other stuff that modern. It really tries hard to harken back to the Disney Warner Brothers traditional style of animation. It really tries to harken back to that, and it does a good job of it too.
Yeah, it looks nice. I don't remember ever seeing any particularly giant glaring errors. There might be one or two little nitpicks here or there. I didn't catch any. I'm sure there's probably some in there somewhere.
I'm with you. The fact that there aren't that many errors or none that stood out whatsoever to me definitely makes me feel like this had to be at least heavily composited via computer.
Yeah.
And probably animated that way as well. I really can't see this being a cell animated work. This film was too consistent.
I don't know if it's actually public knowledge out there or not. It's definitely not hand-drawn, and I don't think it's cell animated, but it's definitely done in a traditional style. Adam Sandler has a pretty big series of movies he's been in, right? Yeah. This is the only traditionally styled animation that Adam Sandler's in. I thought that was a little noteworthy. It looks good. And it's all drawn nice. Nothing looks super out of place. It flows nicely. It's colorful. It looks visually appealing to me.
Agreed. Very beautiful.
I think also what they did with the faces. The face animation was really well done. It's one thing to have a character that looks like Adam Sandler in a movie. It's another thing to have the character's face move like Sandler's, and to have all the characters' faces move very, very well. I think I've been watching too many anime lately, but seeing something that had completely animated faces where the nose is scrunched up, the eyes got wide with surprise, where the mouths had more than just a lip flap when they spoke, man, they really animated those faces well.
Yeah, and it really stands out with Davey in particular, in my opinion, because it's based off a real-life person's face, right? They had a lot of source material. Like, people know what Adam Sandler looked like, right? And the artists know what Adam Sandler looked like. I don't know. I'm not an artist, so I can't say for sure, but I would assume that it would be easier to make realistic facial expressions and realistic movements of people when you are basing them off real people. So, nice job there, guys.
It's so on point, I had to ask myself at certain points if they had him act out these scenes on film and simply animated over his live-action portrayal, because that's the way some of these scenes look. They are done really, really well.
I guess, yeah, we'll just move on right on to inspirations and references.
Okay, well, the main two that I'm going to bring up were ones that have already been touched on a bit. South Park and The Simpsons. South Park is pretty clearly one of the catalysts that made this movie happen. Even South Park's pilot was a Christmas card. A snow-covered small town with quirky characters. Come on, it's basically a different South Park as a setting. The crude humor seems like it was just set off because, hey, South Park got away with it. I really can't see South Park as not being influential in either its creation or at least the studio greenlighting it. And The Simpsons, Davy's song where he's rampaging through town, he's sledding around like Bart Simpson skateboarding in the intro of The Simpsons. Whether or not that show inspired Sandler to make this or any of the creative team to make this, it inspired some executive to greenlight it. This is meant to be in the style of sort of Disney or Warner Brothers classics, sort of in the spirit of classic Christmas films. Are there any old cartoon family movies or old Christmas movies that you feel like this got inspiration from, that you feel like that they really tried to imitate, or that you feel like just share something in common with this one? Because I know that I get that feeling, but I can't put my finger on any one thing.
Yeah, I think it might just be holiday-esque movies in general. Like, those movies that are set around the holidays, but not necessarily about the holidays. I think that genre of stories, movies, animated, whether they be cartoon or not, probably is some of the type of inspirations there. Just like you said that South Park wasn't necessarily the absolute inspiration for Sandler wanting to do this, it definitely probably inspired someone to okay it, and I think something similar with, hey, Sandler's like, oh, I want to do a holiday movie, and there's going to be deer, and it's going to be kind of an adult movie, and there's going to be people talking about the holiday spirit, shit like that.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there were any specific ones, because I am not well versed in holiday movies. But I know that there's some sort of connection there because I can see it, I can feel it. But it feels generic to me because I don't know that content very well. I feel like maybe the animations of the faces of the deer are very related to Bambi, but that's so obvious and so on the nose. I was wondering if there was anything a bit more subtle that you guys had pointed out or that you guys had noticed.
I really couldn't pick anything out either. Like, it just seems like it's its own Christmas film, and Sandler makes it his in his style, but nothing really stands out to reference other Christmas movies. Sure, the deer and other animals, if there were any, are definitely animated in that style. They come off with maybe a Disney vibe, but outside of that, nothing truly stood out. Yeah, looking back to what you said with like the connections to South Park, you could almost say the Davy character is kind of like a combination of the four boys in a sense. He's an asshole, so there's Cartman. He's an alcoholic, not necessarily Kenny, but Kenny's father, so he's got some McCormick in him. There's the whole Jewish aspect, so there's Kyle.
And he likes the girls, so there's Stan.
Sure.
Now, I was going to say, I don't know if anything in one particular, because like you, Dais, I am kind of unversed in the greater Christmas movie mythos. I know there's tons and tons of Christmas movies, especially kids movies. There's like a web of them that are actually linked together into like some kind of weird Christmas cinematic universe. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Frosty. But like, it might just be kind of generic-y Christmas. There's also that generic-y kids musical vibes too. Like we talked about how like...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely wants to feel more like a traditional movie, like a kids movie when it is not. It wants to give off that feel of
I think
being
maybe
more
it's
traditional.
Like it's definitely an adult movie, right? But maybe it's supposed to be playing on that a nostalgia of that. Like, hey, here's a grown-ups holiday movie where the holidays are just kind of the backdrop, and we're going to talk about real life issues comedically. We're also going to have adult jokes in there and do it like a holiday movie. Like, it's a nostalgia factor. Like, hey, look, here's a holiday movie like when you were a kid, and it has relationships, and it has like ties, and it kind of feels like a holiday movie for like when you're a kid. But it has deer shitting on people, or deer shit, or whatever. Yeah,
I can see that. It adds up. You did point out the old Rankin Bass movies. I feel like that's one of those so classic as generic things that probably were, at least in part, inspirations for this one. So yeah, I can definitely see that. Also, product placement. Man, is product placement heavy in this one. It's quite an influence by itself. The entire mall set, not to mention the scenes there. Man, a lot of product placement there. It's got that consumerism Christmas thing going on where the mall itself is sort of this semi-holy place for Whitey.
Sometimes product placement is done bad or untastefully or just awkward, for like scenes where like the Pepsi can is always suspiciously facing the camera, even if it breaks continuity. But this takes it, acknowledges it, and brings it into the fucking story. Yes, it's a product placement, but these product placements are going to come to life and preach to our character later. Kind of dials it up a couple notches and loves it. I don't know. A lot of people hate on product placement. I think it's fun when it's done in a fun way.
Final thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I was the one that suggested we watch this movie for our holiday episode, and yes, I acknowledge it's not the greatest movie ever. I acknowledge that, yes, it's an Adam Sandler movie, and everything that entails comes with it. I don't know, it's just something special to me. I like it. I don't know, I watch it every holiday with my siblings and my mom, and it's just kind of a tradition for me. I don't know much to say about it past that. I'm glad that you guys finally watched it. I know you guys didn't take away as much from it as much as I did, but I'm glad to have shared it with you. Just a fun little holiday movie.
Yeah, I'm happy I saw it. I guess I'd go out of my way to check it out again if it was on TV. It's just incredibly overly crude for what it is. But that's a Sandler thing, and he did a good job.
It's good, but unremarkable. It's
Yeah.
a fun throwback to traditional animated holiday movies with lots of adult humor thrown in. Eight Crazy Nights is the story of the failure of the justice system.
We're going to let you not go to prison for destroying this gigantic... You imagine how much time and effort had to go into making those gigantic ice sculptures from the beginning of the movie?
Yeah, plus he was trying to escape the police and resist arrest, drunk and disorderly conduct. I'm pretty sure Mr. Wang never got his money. I forgot his name.
Oh, yeah. And then he did handcuff two cops together at the end.
He handcuffed two cops together at the end. Yeah, he failed at what he was trying to do with Whitey. Even though he was nice to Whitey at the end, he still did not do what the judge told him to do. He's still an alcoholic, because you don't drop that in a day. Yeah.
You can stop drinking, but you're always an alcoholic.
Either way, it ain't gone in a day. Just because you want it to be. They never bring that up. I suppose there's some karma to it, but certainly no justice. It certainly comes off weird in that respect. I guess the weirdest thing is that it doesn't have anything to do with the holidays. Could have been a Thanksgiving movie. Could have been an Easter movie. Could have been a Yom Kippur movie. Could not have been a Kwanzaa movie.
Yeah, fuck Kwanzaa.